Guys, I am back and I am going to read a few more pages of Snow Queen. So let me just give you a recap if it's been a while since you listened to the first video. Our story, our main characters in our story are a little boy named Kay and a little girl named Gerda, and of course the Snow Queen. And when we left off the last time, Kay got one of the little pieces of the mirror from the magical hobgoblin in his heart and in his eye, which made his heart like a lump of ice and made him see things as that are beautiful as if they were ugly. So let's continue. So he had just finished, that had just happened, and he had just told his friend Gerda that that the rose was ugly and worm-eaten, and he took the rose off the bush and he ripped it up, and she got really upset about what was going on, and so he ran into the house. All right, so here we are, next part. When she came later on with a picture book, he said that it was only fit for babies. And when his grandmother told them stories, he always interrupted with, "But," and then he would get behind her and put on her spectacles, that means her glasses, grandma's glasses, and mimic everything she did. He'd be making fun of his grandma and mimicking her. That's rude. Very soon he could imitate whatever was odd or ugly about the people who lived on their street. When winter came, he began to love the cold. Each day he would take a magnifying glass and hold it over his blue coat while the snowflakes fell on it. "Look in the glass, Gerda. They are so much more perfect than real flowers, if only they did not melt." One morning, Kay went out with his warm gloves on and his little sled hung over his shoulder. He shouted to Gerda, "I don't want to play with you. I'm going to the marketplace to be with the other boys." And away he went. In the marketplace, the boldest boys often used to fasten their sleds to the rears of the carts of the farmers, and then they got a good ride. So they'd have sleds, and the carts that were pulled by horses would pull them, so they get to slide behind them. That day, when Kay and the other boys were in the middle of their games, there drove into the square a large white sleigh, and in it sat a figure dressed in a white fur cloak and a white fur cap. The sleigh drove around the square twice. Suddenly it came to a short stop, and Kay fastened his little sled behind it, and it was pulled away. The sleigh began to go more and more quickly, and the driver turned around from time to time and nodded to Kay in a friendly way, as if they had known each other before. Every time Kay tried to unfasten his sled, the driver nodded again, and Kay sat still. And so they drove swiftly out of town. The snow began to fall so thickly that the little boy could not see his hand before him as they sped along. He tried to unfasten the cord to get free of the big sleigh, but it was no use. His little sled could not be loosened, and on they went like the wind. He cried out, but nobody heard him. He was dreadfully frightened. The snowflakes grew larger and larger till they looked like great white birds. And all at once the large sleigh stopped, and the figure who was driving stood up. It was a lady, tall and slim and glittering. Her fur cloak and cap were made entirely of snow. It was the Snow Queen. Here, let me show you the picture. We do have a picture this time. That red circle is undoubtedly one of my girls that drew on it. Who knows which one? There he is. Can you see him down there? And he's being pulled by the Snow Queen. "We have made good time," she said, "but you are almost frozen. Creep in under my cloak." And she held him close to her in the sleigh, and drew the cloak over him. He felt as though he were sinking into a snowdrift. "Are you still cold?" she asked, and kissed him on the forehead. The kiss was as cold as ice and reached down to his heart, which was already frozen into half a lump of ice. "My sled! Don't forget my sled!" He thought of that first, and they fastened it to one of the white birds who flew behind with the sled on its back. The Snow Queen kissed Kay again, and he forgot all about little Gerda, his grandmother, and everybody else at home. "Now I must not kiss you any more," she said, "or I will kiss you to death." Then away they flew over forests and lakes, over sea and land. Around them whistled the cold wind, the wolves howled, and the snow hissed. Over them flew the black shrieking crows. But high up the moon shone large and bright, and thus Kay passed the long, long winter night. During the day he slept at the Snow Queen's feet. Next section, the old woman and her magic garden. But what happened to little Gerda when Kay did not come back? What had become of him? Nobody knew. The other boys told how they had seen him fasten his sled to a large one which had driven out of the town gate. Gerda cried a great deal. The winter was long and dark to her. Then the spring came, and with it the warm sunshine. "I will go look for Kay," said Gerda. So she went down to the river and climbed into a little boat that lay on the bank. Presently the stream began to carry it away. The boat glided along, passing trees and fields, and then Gerda saw a large cherry orchard in which stood a house with a strange red, blue, and yellow windows and a straw roof. Before the door stood 2 wooden soldiers at attention. Gerda thought they were alive and called to them, but naturally they did not answer. The current swept the boat straight toward the bank, and Gerda called still louder, and a very old woman came out of the house. She leaned upon a crutch and wore a large sun hat painted with the most beautiful flowers. "You poor child," said the woman. And then she stepped into the water, brought the boat in close with her crutch, and lifted little Gerda out. "And now come and tell me who you are and how you came here," she said. And taking Gerda's hand, she led her into the house and shut the door. The windows were very high and painted red, blue, and yellow, so that the light came through in strange colors. On the table was a bowl of the most delicious cherries, and the old woman let Gerda eat as many as she liked, while she combed her hair with a golden comb. The beautiful sunny hair rippled and shone around the friendly face. "I have always longed to have a dear little girl like you," said the old woman. "You shall see how happy we will be together." As she combed Gerda's hair, Gerda thought less and less about Kay, for the old woman was a witch, but not a wicked witch. She only enchanted now and then to amuse herself. She did want to keep little Gerda very much, and so she went into the garden and waved her crooked stick over all the rose bushes, and they disappeared into the black earth, leaving no trace of where they had been. The witch was afraid that if Gerda saw the roses, they would remind her of her own roses and of Kay, and she would run away. Then she led Gerda out into the garden. How glorious it was, and what a lovely scents filled the air. Gerda jumped for joy and played in the garden until the sun set behind the tall cherry trees. Then she went to sleep in a beautiful bed with red silk pillows filled with violets, and she slept soundly and dreamed as a queen does on her wedding day. The next day she played again among the flowers in the warm sunshine, and so many days passed by. Gerda knew every flower, but although there were so many, it seemed to her as if one was missing, but she could not remember which. One day she happened to look at the old woman's sun hat, the one with the painted flowers on it, and there she saw a rose. The good witch had forgotten about that one when she made the other roses disappear into the black earth. "It is so difficult to think of everything. Why, there are no roses here!" cried Gerda, and then she sat down and cried. But her tears fell on the spot where a rose bush had sunk, and when her warm tears watered the earth, the bush came up in full bloom just as it had been before. Gerda kissed the roses and thought of the lovely ones at home, and with them came the thought of Kay. "Oh, what have I been doing?" said the little girl. "I wanted to look for Kay." She ran to the end of the garden. The gate was shut, but she pushed against the rusty lock so that it swung open, and then ran barefoot out of the garden. No one came after her. At last she could not run any longer, and she sat down on a large stone. When she looked around, she thought the summer was over. It was late autumn. The seasons had never changed in the old woman's beautiful garden, where there were sunshine and flowers all year round. "My goodness, how much time have I wasted?" said Gerda. "It's almost winter. I cannot rest any longer." And she sprang up to run on. Oh, how tired and sore her little feet were, and all around her it became colder and colder. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. The next section that we're going to read is called The Prince and the Princess. And that one has quite a few pages, so I'm going to wait. So she's looking for Kay. And now it's been months and months. She didn't realize that she had been with that witch months and months. She still wants to find her good friend Kay. All right, we're going to find out what happens next time. You guys have a great day. See you soon.